what's up in the next part? So I was telling you in the previous part that my ex and I ended up moving to a new apartment. We made a decision to stay together. I decided to not leave him because I had compassion on his pain. At the end of the last apartment, we ended up living together. We had a housewarming. At the housewarming, the sister of the woman that was disturbing the peace in our relationship, she was there, and I believe because of her telling her sister that they have an apartment together, this woman then decided that she's going to become just a pest in the relationship, and she kept on calling my man in the wee hours of the morning, like at funny hours, like at 11, 10, like proper. You don't call anybody's boyfriend, especially when they live with them or husband at that time as a woman. On that day, it's not friendship. Like, it doesn't work like that, right? And this chick kept on calling at funny hours. So one time when he slipped out of bed to talk to her, I was like, this is a new thing. And when he came back, we argued, we fought, and I basically tried to kick him out of the bedroom, and he fought for his right to stay in bed because he was complaining that it's cold, and he's not going to sleep on a leather couch with one little blanket because he needs to get a good night's rest. And we wrestled for like 40 minutes until we finally fell asleep. But the next morning I told him that pity de lana, right? We're done. I'm still very mad at him, right? And despite that, I told him that, look, if you don't basically tell this woman that we're not doing this, right? If you don't let her know, like, you cannot be calling me at wee hours of the morning, whether or not you're going to upset her, we're going to break up. That fight continued to linger all week long. I was still very upset, right? I had to go away again for work, right? For for 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it was not a full week, but then I came back in the middle of the week, and when I came back again, the house was just dingy and dirty. There was just something that my ex, for the life of him, was just irresponsibly doing in a way that was not natural to him. Whenever I would go, it's like, hey man, there was just so much coming up against us. Anyway, whatever. Very well. So when I came back, but when I left, we were still at odds because of this woman, right? When I came back, there now was this issue, and he also was kind of short and mean, like not that loving towards me whenever I would talk to him on the phone from my faraway location. When I came back then, and I found when I came back to the apartment, it became clear that he was not living in the apartment for the week that I was gone. The couple of days that I was gone, he was not there. And I was like, where were you? Because I'm pretty sure you were not at your parents, dude. I'm pretty sure you were not at your mom's and dad's because you just missed them. Where were you living during the time when I wasn't here? And I realized that he was busy. What is this? Who's this dude? This friend of his. He was busy sleeping. The other friend. And for me, it was like, but this friend of yours, that's where you were cheating on me and whatnot. Why do you keep going there? What's going on? And we would just have these like fights, right? And I would get upset and I would tell him, look, we're not doing this. I don't even want to be together. I don't know what's going on, but we were living together. And at this time, I really wanted it to work. That particular lease lasted just 6 months. It was supposed to be a year, but it lasted 6 months. Had to get out again, and yet again, he came back from wherever it is that he was at, where the silence and the sorrow in the house. He was always the first one to sort of kind of break that ice because he hated it. And there was just so much animosity. I remember one time, I told him, get out, go to your parents' house or whatever, because I need time, or like, I don't want to be together, like, we can't live together, like, this thing is not working out, blah blah blah. We kept on fighting. We just kept on fighting, and he didn't want to leave. Like, every time I was there, go the house, he wanted to be with me, but he was not, there was no reciprocity. He was not catering or loving. And whenever I was gone, he made me feel like good riddance. And sometimes when I was gone, he wouldn't even stay in the house, but go and be with that bad friend. And then, stuff like that. And then there was this woman that he kept on, like, communicating with that I couldn't understand. And we just had so many differences. We could not stop fighting. However, whenever I was around, he wanted to spend time with me. He wanted to be with me. And I was like, dude, you are so torn. You are so ambivalent. You don't know what in the world you want out here in these streets. I know what I want, but you won't give it to me because you're stubborn, you're rebellious, and I bet you refuse to listen to me when I talk. You take advice from your friends after I gave you the same advice, but 2 weeks later you take it from them instead. What's going on? Like, what in the world? So we kept on like having, hey man, I remember one time, again, I was sitting on the couch, I wanted him to get out and leave me alone, and he just kind of stayed there, right? My ex was like, he was very affectionate, he was very touchy-feely. We had this PDA thing that we used to like doing and whatnot. He could never just let me sit in that side of the house and me sit on the other side of the house. When we were sleeping, I never ever woke up just lying there by myself all alone. I would always wake up in his arms and stuff like that, even when we went to bed fighting type thing, right? Like I said, he was very, very affectionate and very touchy-feely. I think his main love language, frankly, was physical touch. He was touchy-feely, like extremely. So he could never just leave me alone. Even when we were fighting, I'm upset. I've got like, like that, I'm angry type thing. And I'm like, sit on your side of the couch and I'll sit on my side, like proper. Sit far left and I'll sit far right. And let's just watch whatever under heaven we're watching on TV. But don't talk to me. Since we live together, fine, couples fight, but we're not talking. And he would like shift, next to me. Like he would shift and sit, like insist on sitting next to me. And I would push him and push him and push him and push him. And he would like grope and touch and squeeze and poke and prod until I would like literally cave in. I gave in every single time. Every time. And he would even laugh at me. It's like he knew what he needed to do in order to get me to bend back up again. And unfortunately, it became a tactic of manipulation for him because I really was upset and I really had some proper issues. But he knew that all you need to do is just, like I said, poke and prod and squeeze and hug and hold until I cave in. The other night, he had basically fought with me, wanting him to get out of bed and sleep on the couch. And he wrestled with me for 40 minutes until I finally slept. And he slept with me in bed and I woke up in his arms. That's how he used to subdue me. He never used to fight with words. He just fought with touch. My ex used to hug me back into shape, but we never talked about stuff. Like nothing was ever resolved. Like nothing. Okay? So he would do the same thing on the couch when I'm sitting watching TV. I'd be like, just give me space, leave me alone. He never did. He never did. He would like squeeze and poke and prod and move towards me and touch and grope and hug and whatnot until I would just like basically just be wrapped like a burrito in his arms and I just let it go. That's how he used to do things. And while some might think that's romantic, it's toxic. It's toxic because nothing was ever spoken about. Nothing was ever resolved. And the thing that made him rebellious to me, he never really corrected it. He never ever got out from a mode of literally making a fool out of me, where he'd be like, so I'll just listen to her all day long rapping, but I will pretend like I'm in agreement and then go on and do something absolutely different. And after a couple of years of being undermined like that and manipulated like that, it gets tired. It gets tired, do you understand? And it gets to a point where you're like, really? I mean, I'm like, what, only 25 now? And if I'm going to be dealing with this at 30, what in the world am I going to look like at 45 with a man that just never resolves issues? All he does is hug me back to shape. I will be a miserable wife. I can't. Like, dude, you cannot just not listen to me. The Bible says, husbands, if you don't listen to your wives, your prayers will be hindered. So this man was frustrating me with disregard. He was holding on to his Zulu roots, saying umfazi akazongitshela what to do. But instead of being aggressive about it, he won me. Like, it's like he subdued me ka lerato, iseng ka matla a letsogo. He subdued me with love. He did not subdue me with violence. So the difference then between his Zulu way of life versus the typical Zulu way of life is that some men will just slap you into silence, tell you ungazongitshela mfazi, and be rough and rude and verbally abusive. But he wasn't rough, rude, or verbally abusive. He just shut me up by hugging me into silence. I feel like that's a lot more evil. I don't know. Because when you're hugged into silence, you don't know to walk out in the middle of the night and never come back. You are cajoled into thinking he's actually been pacified when it hasn't happened. And so therefore you can find yourself just completely disregarded by a man who thinks you're a toy to be played with, poked and prodded at, squeezed like a teddy bear, but not really taken seriously. And I was a very serious woman. I was a whole thriving career woman whose life ideology, motto, and way of doing things was actually bearing a great deal of fruit for me. And I imagine that it could be beneficial for him, but he was ignoring it altogether. And he was opting to break me perpetually on a loop with bad friends, and then coming back and basically capitalizing on the fact that I was a sucker for how romantic he was. I really was. I'd never been loved like that before by a man, but I also had never been, frankly, just ignored like that. Like, he ignored me in a way that was hard to detect. He ignored me in a very undetectable way. It's like a silent killer, like carbon monoxide. What he was like carbon monoxide. You don't know that it's killing you until you have literally entered into eternity. And that's what this man was doing. His violence, his GBV was not physical. It was weird and warped in other tactics. And it was so cunning and pernicious that I would never have been rescued from that manipulative up and down of my ex unless literally an intervening force that was extraneous of me, outside of me, snatched me from that. Unless Jesus rocked up, I wouldn't have been taken out of that relationship. Unless the Lord came, guys, I was going to be stuck with a man that was going to be psychologically manipulative that way. Unasang mameli. Initially he was, but he wanted to have his bread buttered on both sides, cater to his boys and pride himself in ignoring everything I have to say, and talk with them in a man cave about how it is that he's subduing me, he's handling me, while at the same time making me feel like I am loved. I don't get slapped, I don't get beaten, I don't get spoken down to. If anything, I get spoken very loftily to. I get held when I sleep at night. I wake up still in his arms. I just get loved, but I'm also ignored. What are we doing here? Exactly. What are we doing? Indeed, my ex ended up manifesting some pretty dark stuff later on, but not before I started dreaming. Like, that apartment, I got out of it, right? I dissolved the lease again, and this time around I refused to move in with him. I got my own apartment, and this time around we were now what is this, he was visiting me on the weekends, and that was the establishment that lasted for like a whole year, and it worked until I got born again. Remember, he's moving at a snail's pace, but now he's growing better. That woman that he that used to be a tick, basically a bug, it was at the end of that apartment that he finally put his foot down and was like, look, I would appreciate it if you stopped calling me in the wee hours of the morning. I have a girlfriend, I am with her, I love her, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm gonna be transparent with her every time we talk to each other because I'm your daughter's goddad. So basically he put his foot down with that woman, and she got the point, she got it. So he chose me over that female, and it caused that female to want nothing to do with me. It was only once I was living by myself and my ex was now visiting me that our relationship had some kind of a semblance of peace for the first time in years. And now he was starting to heal. Like, he was starting to be able to be normal with life because he was really struggling with the loss of his brother. And now, like I said, about 3 years had progressed since then, and life was coming back again. His family was starting to recover better. Everybody was doing better, right? It was at this stage then that I started to get pretty much the same boyfriend that I had when we first started out, that was happy now to heed me, listen to me, and things were good for, like I said, 5 seconds. One time we went to go and party at this one restaurant of his friend, and that was the first time after like 4 years of our relationship that I finally met this woman. And I did not meet her because I was introduced to her. She was there and we were there, and she came to him, greeted him, and ignored me and pretended like I wasn't even there. I was like, whoa, you're very immature. You could have greeted in order for you to at least make it clear that, look, you were not even trying to compete, like to vindicate yourself basically, but you're making it clear that you wanted to be a thorn in my relationship. So good riddance. When I saw her, however, I was like, you gave me grief for that lady. Are you serious? How can I say this, guys? I'm not trying to... When I was growing up, there was this female that my cousin knew. My cousin was a little bit forward all over the show with everybody, right? She knew this girl that was a TV presenter, basically. She was a KTV or whatever. She used to have a little stint on KTV, on Mnet, right? She was a plain Jane in the worst way. Like, she was a plain Jane in the worst way. And I remember my cousin coming to me one time when we were watching KTV, talk about it, KTV, sing about it, whatever. And she was like, this girl is my friend. I know her. She goes to this particular high school, right? We were still kids. And she was like, like, Papa, that's what my cousin said. She was like, do you see how plain she is? But the guys she dates are the hottest boys in the hood, and they all just dote over her. Could not understand why. Like, that's what my cousin was saying. She was like, this girl draws guys like she's honey and they are bees. All the dudes that we all spaz over, they easily just date her. She dates some of the hottest guys and we don't understand it. I was like, I don't know, maybe it's her personality, I don't know, type establishment thing. When I met this chick, all I could think about was the chick on KTV, talk about it, KTV, sing about it. Remember, my cousin had told me that when we were on the come up, that she had a great body. When I asked her what she looks like, she was like, she's cool, she's got a great body. She was skinny, slender, you know, yeah, that's what she was. She was a slender girl. She had a small frame. She was petite. So maybe that's what made my cousin think she had a great body, because my cousin has always been a big girl. Maybe she envied or coveted was skinny, but I was also skinny. And my cousin used to call me, like, when we were growing up, she was like, I'm the beautiful one and you're the sexy one. I was like, so are you saying I'm not beautiful? Anyway, whatever. So my cousin used to think I was sexy. She used to think that I had a sexy physique. So I think my cousin always equated skinniness with sexiness or beautiful body. Maybe precisely because unale chabinya naga kiss kiss. So yeah, I personally don't think I've got a banging body, but my cousin used to think I was sexy. So I mean, I'm just ordinary. I'm average that way when it comes to my body. So yeah, when I saw this chick, I was like, my cousin then again has always thought everything skinny is hot when it comes to a bod. So this chick was just a petite chick, but in terms of sfatleho, she wasn't ugly, but she also wasn't beautiful. She was just okay. And for me, it was like, really, maybe my vanity was kicking in at this particular point. I was like, I looked at my boyfriend and I was like, that's what you suffered me for, like literally 4 years, 3 years of a relationship for. But then I remembered KTV, talk about it, KTV, sing about it. I remember the girl from high school, from my cousin's sphere of influence when we were all in high school. Onale presente ako KTV. That was a plain Jane. How it is that she used to date some of the hottest boys. And I remember just thinking, oh, maybe this chick got the KTV girl factor, in the sense that there's something about her that causes guys to just stumble all over the show. And it's not about beauty. It is not about anything other than there is a way about her. Lo and behold, well, that's what that's what I was thinking at the time. So you know, when you are sizing a woman up because you're in competition and you are, when my ex was like, hi Pinky, I knew that it was her. And she did not greet me, she just ignored me, following which I then made the obvious conclusion that this is the Pinky. I literally only saw her about 3 to 4 years into our relationship, and I was confused as to why my ex was spazzing so much over her. Why pretty much apparently she was causing all the men in the neighborhood to faint, because she had quite a reputation in that regard. And why she's even able to bang wealthy men. What's going on there? And at the time I was like, she's like the KTV factor. Now that I am in Christ, I know what that KTV factor is. It's a Jezebel spirit. You don't have to be gorgeous as a woman. You do not have to have the most striking eyes, the most striking contours to your body. You don't have to have anything going for you as a woman. All you have to do is pretty much have a spirit. And this spirit it's a succubus, right? Is it a succubus? Is it a succubus? The spirit of the Lord is bringing to my understanding the word succubus, which is the one that afflicts men. The one that afflicts men, the one that afflicts women is an incubus indeed. So a succubus is a woman. It is the one that is in a woman that makes men go loco. Okay? I now only, however, as a Christian, know what it is. Back then, all I could think about was, this chick is similar to the one wako KTV. Talk about it, KTV. The one that my cousin was talking about. Because like I said, physically, nothing of her would make me nervous of that girl. Literally nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nasato, say, she was a plain Jane in the worst way. She wasn't ugly. She wasn't beautiful either. And the body that my cousin was like, praising on the rooftops, I was like, whatever. Almost I was told she was short. So essentially, I looked like a model. I slayed her in that regard too. And my height, I towered over this woman. I had a presence and a girth that she just lacked. And I could not understand why my ex was fainting in the presence of this woman, to a point of confessing to me that he loves her more than any other woman that he had ever been with, at my peril, and then wreaking havoc in my life, but also getting to a point of conquering what under heaven it is that was the influence that she had on him. He overcame it, and the thing that made him overcome it was the recognition that he much rather preferred to be with me. What did I represent? I was a woman. I was ride or die. I was there for him. In spite of my physical beauty in comparison to this woman, that was not relevant. What was relevant is the fact that I was a woman to my man. Whereas this female was a lightning strike, a thunderous invitation. She was a Jezebel at the city corners. Do you understand what I'm saying? She had a spirit that she carried in her that lured men. How do women even get the spirit in them? It's probably promiscuity. Sometimes it could be genetic, in the sense that you inherit it from a parent, and so you just kind of are inclined towards you have a proclivity towards certain behavior as a woman. But for the better part of the time, it's your own activity. It is your own behavior. It is your own chasing after money as a woman, insisting that certain kinds of men don't make sense for you, making yourself like a little bit bit of a kanging bow. If you like literally hold your foot down like a gavel in a court of law, like a judge, and you say, I'm never gonna be with a guy on a drive, continuously singing songs like I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy that can't get no love from me, refusing to give men chances that are struggling in life purely because they're struggling in life, overlooking love, disregarding love altogether for money, choosing things like power over actual romance. When you keep doing that repetitively as a woman, ultimately you cultivate a spirit in you that is a Jezebel that will lure certain kinds of men to you that are happy to be like puppy dogs at your feet and do anything you want at your beck and call, and you will become the bane of the existence of other women in the community because you will steal their men. You will call their men at night and their men will struggle to not take your calls. You are going to be the itch in the relationships of many women, and unless these men make a decision that I don't want a prop, I don't want a toy, I don't want a lightning strike, sorry, unless a man makes a decision that he doesn't want a lightning strike but wants an actual woman, and he sticks to his guns and puts his foot down with a Jezebel, she's not going anywhere. So this woman was subdued by my ex's foot putting down, and he ultimately recovered from what he imagined were enormous feelings for her that were unconquerable. When he realized that he couldn't lose me, he essentially conquered the Jezebel spirit. But if I had gotten fed up, the other thing that helped the guy along was the fact that I kept on going back to a man that I felt like I wasn't done with. I was too in love to leave. If I had left him, he would have been triggered permanently onto a state of lingering after a Jezebel. But I stayed with him, and it was the endurance and the long suffering in that state that basically rescued him. But who under heaven wants to long suffer a man losing their hair, graying, getting fine lines and wrinkles, waiting for a man to realize that it is better to be with Hannah than with Penina? Literally sitting around waiting for a man to wake up to see that it is better to be with Abigail rather than to be with Michelle, with Esther than to be with Vashti. Who wants to wait 20 years for a man to wake up and smell the coffee? Who wants a prodigal spouse that is busy roaming these streets with wicked women, getting all different kinds of diseases and making himself a baby daddy of many before he's like, yo, I am sorry, home is karabo? What woman wants to khotlela like that? That is a very unfortunate call for black women. They tell us ukubegezela because it works. I'm not gonna lie. Ukubegezela, khotlela ring, waiting for a guy to snap out of rubbish does work. But who wants to endure so much nonsense when they don't have to? When they can just wait on Jesus for a husband? When they can just wait on the Lord to basically bring a man that is already actively fighting Jezebel spirits? Making war like that Mapalo guy that I told you about on YouTube, a young 21-year-old guy that is resisting Jezebel spirits. He's only 21. What excuse does a 30-year-old man have? At that stage, my boyfriend was headed for 30. What excuse does a 30-year-old man have when a 21-year-old can resist a Jezebel and be faithful to a godly woman? Literally seek the Lord's face for a wife that honors him, and along the way reject KTV, talk about it, KTV, sing about it. My ex had no Holy Spirit. He wasn't saved, and I had to work in him to finally resist a woman that fled from him. The Bible says resist the devil and he will flee from you. Ultimately that Jezebel's fled, but it took years, and in all of those years I imagined that my ex didn't love me as much as he loved her. Meanwhile, it was a spirit that was working in him like a battery charging a torch in order for it to stay lit. If you take that battery out, there's no feelings there, there's no emotion. These women hook men with tongues of silver, with tongues of honey, and it is a spirit that is so almost irresistible by men that, like I said, they inevitably capitulate to it unless women are prepared until they wake up and realize, I'm not about to lose Karabo for KTV, talk about it. I'm not about to lose Karabo for Pinky. I'm like, Pinky, there's nothing in her. She's hollow. She rejected me for crying out loud because I was working in a call center. In and of herself, she didn't have the strongest job. She was a young woman. She was my age, that girl. 1984, exactly just like me. Sonkes si young. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. And you are expecting a 26-year-old guy to be a millionaire. I'm sorry, I'm not going to get there. If you want a millionaire, I'm Yolanda, 45-year-old Hugh Hefner. Go and fetch a Hugh Hefner. But this woman wanted the experience and the joy of being with the young man and the glory of it, but also, bread buttered on both sides. She also, however, wanted a wealthy man. There are not very many 25-year-old entrepreneurs that are millionaires, or 30-year-old entrepreneurs that are millionaires. For the better part of the time, most of us get there, in our mid-30s to the late 30s, maybe even 40s. So since there are so few of them to go around, go and search for them, sisters, if you want them. But I'm not going to be the boy toy that's cute, handsome, energized in all respect to love you when you are still young and we are all young, while you on the side ogle your eyes out for guys with big cars that are much too old for me to be competing with them. I'm not going to compete with that. And my boyfriend was like, look, I've got something better here, so no, I'm not doing it. And it was at the point of resisting that it did not even, it stopped being so hard for him to resist this Jezebel lady. The spirit in her, she cultivated it over the years by being such a gold digger, by allowing society to influence her to basically disregard any human being at all that doesn't have money. That the thing that made her as classist as she is, to a point of passing up such a big love, she eventually ended up regretting it. And now she was passing me shade. She was making out of me the enemy when I had done nothing to her. She had rather been the thorn in my flesh the whole time. So she owed me a greeting when she met me, to basically set the record straight that, look, I wasn't trying to take your man. At the end of the day, he's my kid's goddad. So you were just insecure. She was supposed to, I don't know if you've seen the music video, Alicia Keys, back in the day. I think I'm jealous of your girlfriend, although she's just a girl that is your girlfriend. You know how at the end of that music video, the friend that is the girl that is the friend of this guy, she goes to Alicia Keys on some high, how are you? I'm this. Look, this is my boy and I love him, and since he loves you, I love you too. She was supposed to do that to set the record straight, to make it clear that she was not trying to scoot me out the way. Instead, she did not even greet me the first time I ever met her, and I only found out who she was because my boyfriend said, hi Pinky, and I was like, oh, that's the one. She stayed mean, so she was not misinterpreted by me or misconstrued. She was exactly what it is that I thought she was. And my boyfriend, the awkwardness of her not greeting me, he just kind of glowed over it. He glided over it. Glowed is not a word, I don't think. He glided over it and pretended like that's not a thing. Anyway, this woman's spirit, I conquered it. But the thing is, I will say this and over again to women, do you really want to wait 5 years for your husband to make like the prodigal son and come back home after ransacking all different kinds of women's bodies out in these streets, or disrespecting you with a Jezebel, and then he comes back? Do you seriously, as a woman, want to be like Taraji P. Henson in the movie Baby Boy? Do you? Who wants that? You know how she's just sitting out it's not Terrell, who's this guy, Tyrese's insanity. He goes and makes another baby with some other woman, and it takes a while for him to finally settle down, get his act together, and then at the end of the movie they are like this little happy family, and she's pregnant with their second baby, and they are married now. Do you seriously want to ukhotlela indoda for that long? Literally, in Christ you don't have to. Men in Christ, first of all, don't take 10 years to propose marriage to a woman, because they know that lust can wreak havoc in your body. Secondly, men in Christ flee from Jezebel. They flee from bad women, so you won't have to worry about one calling him at 2 a.m. in the morning and him slipping out of bed to take the call. They will very frankly tell him, look, you can't be calling me. I saw your missed call at 2 a.m. in the morning. I got a wife. You don't get to do that. Please don't disturb the peace in my marriage. They will never ever give insecurities to their wives. I had to ride out my ex's insanity until he finally severed this chick, and she was never able to come up for air again after that, therefore validating that this man did not love this woman more than me. He was under literally a spell of a woman that was operating in a particular spirit. A succubus spirit had sucked him in, and he was only able to conquer it when he made a decision that he wanted to be with an actual woman and not, like I said, a lightning strike. Her feet go down to death. Women, you got another way out of this. It does not have to be that way. I'm just saying, for you to ukhotela long-term relationships and then you are only calm and cool at 35 and you're already popping your first grade because you're 35. Why? At just 35, why? There is no need. Jesus gives literally the 10 amount of instant gratification, but only after a great amount of delayed gratification. You are patient, you wait for a season, and what comes beautifully, nicely wrapped, pressed down, shaking together, and running over. Neither eye has seen nor ear has heard the things which God has prepared for those who wait for him. And so you are not going to believe the guy that ultimately comes along. That that is if the Lord does not rapture the church. So properly and thoroughly, like, stop settling. When I was living by myself and my boyfriend was now visiting me, it was at that stage when he realized that because I messed up 2 other times with my woman, now she doesn't even want to consider the prospect of living with me. And that's only then when he decided to get his act together. But by then, he was already dabbling with the darkness. Remember that guy that told him a very powerful man is going to give him a run for his money? Remember, I also confessed to my ex that I basically made out with another guy during a breakup of ours. Remember, what is this? His friends, his dad was busy telling him, this woman is too strong. One day she's going to leave you. His dad constantly kept on telling him, one day she's going to leave you once she gets her degree and is very strong in her career for a guy that has more than you. Like, he kept on getting counseled by people all over the show that were messed up men in particular. That I'm going to do things that I never would have done to my boyfriend. I never would have done that. Literally, I was accused and told that I was guilty before proven innocent. Guilty, nje. No amount, nothing that I ever did for this man, no bending over backwards, no history basically that I had walked in to show my ride or die state worked to unconvince him of the lies he was being told by his friends. And so he decided that in law I got stable. My ex and I used to have quite the thriving sex life. I'm a Christian and I'm not here to talk about sex, frankly, because I don't want to trigger anybody. But we had a very thriving sex life, and that changed when he decided to start messing with me because he thought I was going to cheat on him. Here it is that I've been ride or died with a guy that has cheated on me, at that point confirmed twice. Other times I was not aware of. I am at this stage very faithful to this rando, and then it ain't broke, he tried to fix it. He not only cast a spell on me to never leave him, but I believe he did something to me down there so that I will never sleep with another guy again. I never would have even thought to cheat on my ex and therefore ransack myself with multiple male parts in my body. It was disgusting for me for that to even be a thing. I never would have done it, but just his insecurity alone caused him to afflict me down there. I started getting dreams of a very dark nature in that relationship. I wasn't saved yet, and yet I got dreams of me being in a sea of snakes while he was looking over, and when I cried out for help, for him to save me in where I was trapped in this environment, he just looked at me and walked away in the dream. I was sleeping next to him that day when I had that dream, and I told him the dream that I had, and he rebuffed me. He snubbed me. He basically just silenced it. He was like, he didn't even want to hear what I had to say. He was now doing to me that which his boy's girl was doing to him. Anzamuloy. My ex messed with our sex because I went from having no pain at all and no issues in that area to not only it being very uncomfortable and painful just after one round, essentially, but my period. There was a time when I was on my period for a whole month, non-stop, and I kept going to the guy. I went to 2 different gynecologists. I went to 3 different gynecologists. The first one could not find out what was wrong with me. The second one tried to do surgery on me that was unnecessary. I had booked this surgery until I told my sister, and my sister was like, I gotta get a second opinion. So I went and I got a second opinion at my sister's gynae, and my sister's gynae told me, no, you don't need to have surgery. I don't know why these doctors like to operate. Frankly, you don't need to have surgery. Just let this thing ride itself out. She also didn't know what it was. She did not know why I was bleeding for an entire month. She did a scan on my uterus. Is it a uterus? Or whatever, that area. And she identified what she said was cysts in there that would come out. But ovarian cysts don't cause a woman to bleed for a month. And she said that they will come out on their own. Like during your period, you didn't even have to come and see me. You just needed to just kind of bleed it out. Guys, I was on my period for an entire month. And from that stage, sex started to hurt in a way that it never hurt before. So much so did sex hurt with my boyfriend after just one session, okay? That when I finally repented and gave my life to Jesus, and so I stopped fornicating, one of the things that I took to God in prayer was for him to restore me sexually, because sex with my ex in like our last year of the relationship was painful in a way that it was never painful. Literally 4 years, all 4 years, like all that time, everything was hunky-dory. We could like go and go and go all day, all night, and I would feel no issues. And then all of a sudden in our 4th year, our very last year of that relationship, I started to burn after just one session. When I would go and pee, it would burn. I could never ever go another round. Like literally, I would go once and then I would have to take a break for a couple of days, 3, before I could go back again. And I was like, when I came to Christ and realized what he had done to me, I was like, really? just to make sure that I don't go out on you. You messed up with our sex life. You messed up with our sex, like, proper. You made sure that I can't be comfortable 100% in a way that you would never be able to feel the discomfort, because you're the guy. You're not the one that is experiencing what I'm experiencing here. So you would be cool and I'd never be cool. That level of selfishness, what in the world? I could not for the life of me believe that he actually went out like that. He prevented me. I don't know what would have happened if I had gone out on him. I don't know what would have happened to the guy. I don't know. Guys, all I know is that it hurt with him. So what would have happened spiritually? These weird things that happen in African spirituality. I don't know what would have happened to the guy with whom I was cheating. So I guess that's why the Lord made sure that after my ex, I would basically essentially repent, give my life to him, because I would have probably found out with my new boyfriend that I can't even have sex. He gave me what would be the tantamount of vaginosis. You know, that illness in women where the moment a man comes close to her, her vaginal walls clamp up and she basically enters into a severe amount of pain and she can't have sex. And women who suffer from that usually are ones either who have been raped in the past or just have a fear, an irrational fear of sex for whatever reason. And they clamp up such that they have to go through like psychological, like therapy. They have to go to therapy to untrain their minds and their bodies to basically be able to have sex. One case I read about in Cosmopolitan magazine of a woman who was married for 4 years before she had sex with her husband for the first time, because she was raped as a kid and never had sex ever since then until she got married. And 4 years into the relationship with her husband, marriage, she could not have sex with him because every time he got close to her, she would clamp up and it would be so painful and so unbearable that they'd have to stop. So I likely might have gotten something like that with my, goodness gracious, with a new guy. Like I would have probably experienced an issue of that nature if I didn't give my life to Jesus, because that's what witchcraft does. He messed with our sexual relations. Thank God I repented after him, because Lord knows what would have happened if I didn't. God called me out from that darkness because my ex-boyfriend and his insecurity and his own mistakes that he made, a man that started out such a doting guy, turned out that kind of monster to mess with a woman's biology like that. Not only did I get those dreams about him basically leaving me in a sea of snakes, I had the issue with the sex, and at the very end of the relationship, like the thing that finally caused us to break up, he over and above all these other issues. Remember, the last year was somewhat hunky-dory until the very tail end. That's when he also then, his personality changed. He got arrogant. He became mean. He became ill-spirited. He was pompous because finally now he was no longer struggling materially. He had gotten a car and his business was kicking off and he was starting to be a man with money, and so this time around he felt like he didn't need to beg me. So he got rude, and that was the final straw for me. Let's go into the next part. Hopefully it's either the last or the second last part.